Well, we might kick off then and talk about the Neurodiversity Hub. So we've got a few of us here. Okay, so Untapped's been working on this initiative for 2.5 years now. We actually started the conversation 4 years ago with La Trobe University about the idea of creating an autism-friendly university. But it came out quite strongly when we kicked it off, a co-design process back 2.5 years ago, which was run in Melbourne with a number of universities, including Swinburne and La Trobe and Curtin, and University of Queensland, Macquarie, University of South Australia, into a co-design process where we're looking at how do we create a program that could support autistic students at university or at TAFE. And it really came from the realization that there's probably 3 areas we were failing in, and one was around the pathways to university from high school, because it's quite a bit of a change. So how do you support people and get them to see there's a pathway and that they can get there, because it's a scary place, and want people to feel that they can make the transition, and that their parents are comfortable with that as well. So that was one area. The next area was for those who actually did make it to university, how do we help them succeed with that? And it's that student success side of things. So how do you support them in getting through the studies? Because a lot of them, I mean, it's hard for anyone going to university, but particularly this cohort of people, we get to this time of the year and exams are coming and assignments are banking up, and it can just be a bit overwhelming. So it's the idea of how do you create the support networks to support them in that. And the final piece was around work experience, because even those who did make it through their studies often didn't have any work experience, hadn't had the opportunity, or had really been focusing on their studies. And so when they came to present to a hiring manager at a company, they were being compared to another student, a neurotypical student who maybe had had a number of different work experience opportunities, and so it was not really a level playing field for them to succeed. So trying to address all those areas, and the way to do that is really to create these networks of support, or this community of practice between schools and universities and employers, and obviously TAFEs as well, to make this a possibility. So 2.5 years ago, we co-created this this program, and then through the balance of that year, 2018, we were testing that program out with talking with a number of universities and students and employers and parents and researchers and autism associations. And we had the chance to talk to some well-advanced colleges in the United States about their programs and get input from them. And then a year and a half ago, we given some funding from DXC Technology, and we're able to take on 2 interns from Cornell University who came out and worked with us on taking this theoretical model we'd developed and putting it into practice, and assembling as many resources as we could. And that's what I'm going to go through here on the website. And also, just more recently, in the last couple of months, we've run a couple more internships in Melbourne with students, with university students, and we've created a couple of other parts of the website, which I'll go through as well. So this is the landing page for the hub that you can see on the screen. And it's got some background on what is neurodiversity, and there's a link there to find out a lot more about neurodiversity, what we're trying to achieve with the hub, what the objectives are for the different cohorts of people we're trying to assist and support, quick links to a whole lot of resources, and then just the logos of all the organizations that are involved. The latest one being Dell Dell Technologies in Austin, Texas, who joined a couple of weeks ago. So there's a page for students to give more information. There's and links to the opportunities for them. One for employers, one for universities. But the major part of the website is this resources section. And this is where we have, this is the landing point to then select the area that you are keen to get resources in. And we've grouped it into categories for the different people who might come to use this site. So there's a section for tertiary students, for employers, for universities. There's this new section that just went up 2 days ago on innovation and entrepreneurship. That's for young adults who want to start their own business and get some ideas on how to do that. And there's a section on enabling spaces. So this is for architects and building designers to create more accommodating or inclusive spaces for work and living. And then there's another section for secondary school students. We've also put together some tips on how to study and work from home. And this has come from a whole range of things. So there's a whole of really useful links, general tips about mindfulness, about managing your workload, avoiding distractions, and some other links to other materials. And then we've attached here some slides that were put together in the Dandelion program, just with some simple tips, 6 tips on how to set yourself up to succeed. And really this idea of dedicating a workspace, pacing yourself and being positive, dressing as if you're going to the office. So really, don't work in your bedroom if you can avoid it. Trying to create that distance between your home life and your work life, even though you are at home. Obviously making sure the technology is there, remaining connected with your colleagues, and a number of our teams will actually have an open channel on Skype or Google or Zoom or Teams, whatever. They're not having a formal meeting, they're just using it as a way of remaining connected. So they're all at home individually, but they've got this channel running so they can hear other people working and see other people working, and keep that connection with the team. And then obviously the other thing is avoiding distractions and working out your way to plan your day and making sure that you're achieving the things you need to achieve. So just some simple things there that we've included in those tips. But for tertiary students, really to address those 3 areas of failing I'd spoken about before, we'd assembled a range of resources. And a lot of these were already existing, and they had been developed through research activities. So this one had been developed at La Trobe University and as materials around transitioning to university. And there's a section of materials for students and for their parents and carers. So there's an ability to go to a web-based version of this where you can just work through all this information. The other option is you can just download a booklet, which contains same sort of information, but just set out as a PDF booklet. So there's different ways to access that. I've got links to organizations in the US, which provide similar resources for US students. This is a link to an organization that lists all the neurodiverse programs that exist at colleges in the US. So again, this is for US students. Another area that we felt there was a gap from the co-curricular program was around life skills. And 2 years ago, I was fortunate to meet Autumn O'Connor that Michelle mentioned before. And she's autistic, she's dyslexic, dyscalculia, and a couple of other things. But she has designed training courses before and run them for autistic people, and had a good background experience to be able to do this. And so she's designed a whole set of courses which we are putting together. And if I just link through, so it's called Be Your Best. And if I just link you through, so this is the platform that it's on, but she's assembled a group of writers, editors, and artists, who are all neurodiverse. So they've got some type of neurovariation, which you can see listed out here. So these are all the people that have provided input to the materials, and they're located all over the world. So they're providing that. There's a bit of an outline of why we are doing this, why we're offering these materials, what the approach is to the teaching, and testimonials from those that have completed the courses. And then this is the link to all the courses. So there's the Eat Well Cooking Basics that's just gone out. There's a range of, there's a subject called Be Organised. So this is organisational skills, and there's various courses that you can work through in that space. Just going back. So that's the Be Your Best. And so that's really, it's not technical stuff. It's really about life skills. And we're also going to be we're currently developing courses on relationships and on presentation skills as well. So there's a whole range of materials there that can assist all sorts of people. We also put together a financial literacy course, and this is based on the ANZ Money Minded program, but we had some researchers review that program and identify gaps in the program that need to be filled. So one of the interns we had then went and searched the world and tried to find resources that would fill those gaps. And they curated this 9-week course, which is set out here. So there's a ground level, perception of money, needs and wants, budgeting, going to the intermediate area, and then to the future focus, and that includes around superannuation and so on. So it's a really great course to work through. It can be done over a 9-week period, or it's sort of done in 9 lots. We've created a supplemental guide that Autumn, our editor, designed, which is about helping people work through the course. So it provides you with some introduction, a reflective question to work through, then to complete the week 1 activities, and then come back and reflect on those activities, and then you go on to the next week. So it's something that can be done by an individual, or it could be done by a group of students in a university. So some universities have student groups of neurodiverse students, so it could be something that they worked through together in that way. And we also, one of the interns also created an employee expo guide, or a careers fair guide. This is a survival guide for going to a careers fair, and it's a 35-page outline of how to prepare for, how to develop, respond to questions, a checklist for handling conversations, and what to do next after the careers fair. And this is the 1-pager survival guide, things to remember to do on the day. But it's got a whole lot of details about how to prepare for the day. It's got a section on developing questions, and then how to respond to questions. And then for the actual event, we've got a checklist for the conversation. So we recommend that people print out one of these checklists for each of the employers they're going to meet with, and they use this as a guide to help them go through the process. So if they're feeling a bit anxious or flustered, then this can be a great way to keep on track with what you're doing and remember the next thing that you need to ask, or record what came out of the conversation. And that then lets you have a record of what the conversation was and allows you to get into this follow-up process. So that's what we've done with that, and that's been made available to, or recommended to, students at a number of universities back before we got into the lockdown situation when people were still running careers fairs physically, as a guide to use. And we've also developed guidelines for universities and employers on how to be more inclusive in how they're interacting with students. One of the people we work with at La Trobe University who's helping implement the Neurodiversity Hub there, Beth Radulski, has done a video on her experiences of going from an undergrad who didn't disclose to now a teacher at La Trobe doing her PhD who has disclosed. And it's a really great video to have a look at. So I recommend that. We've also done some things around anxiety. So there's a thought piece around managing anxiety through connectivity with people. And there's a link to Stanford University, which has a whole website around managing stress in this COVID time. So that's this COVID-19 resources, and there's a webinar there from an expert around the pandemic. We've also got a grounding exercise booklet. This is, not sure if everyone can see this, but this is a little booklet. It's an A7 size. It's there, you can see it there. Yeah, so it's just a little booklet that I can't show it in my camera. There it is. It comes as an A4. You can print it out, and there's folding instructions on how to then use that. But that's just something as a way of having a thing that you can help you recenter yourself if you get into an anxious situation or a stressful situation. We've also done a couple of articles on disclosure. So there's one for use at university, and this was written by one of our interns, but with input from a number of autistic students and the process they'd gone through when they were considering disclosing their diagnosis at university. And also a thought piece in the work environment, the pros and cons of disclosing the workplace. We've also got some lived experience essays from a number of autistic and individuals with other neurodiverse variations. This one's about body image aimed at autistic women. There's one around alienation, which is just looking at this concept of the parallels between being a neurodiverse and being in a foreign country. Another young man we work with who was made redundant in his job and with persistence has now got a job in the Bureau of Meteorology, and this tells his story of how he got to that. And then Beth Radulski, again, just another article she's done about parallels between living and working at home with the pandemic and how the parallels of that with neurodiversity for neurotypicals to perhaps understand better. We've got some links to Dear Dyslexic and ADHD Australia, who are organisations in those areas. There's an organisation in the UK that does guides to take you through life's journey, and there's the beautifully illustrated maps, and our Autumn uses these religiously she carries them around with her just to get through things if she needs to, but they're just great resources that she's always used for years. So we've spoken with the lady in the UK who does these, and this is just a link to her self-help maps. And Autumn also runs a group of Aspies in Melbourne. There's over 500 people who are in that group. And she therefore wrote a blog. We set up another website called Aspies at Work, and she wrote a blog with a whole of materials on things that you may help neurodiverse people with, creating a CV or the interview tips or whatever it is. So there's some great things that have been put together to support neurodiverse young adults. And then we've got a link to a partner in the UK that's assembled a whole lot of resources to help you with your studies. So they've gone through and found a whole lot of things that can help you It could be text-to-speech things or vice versa, and other ways of assisting. And this organisation is wholly neurodiverse in the people that work there, and so they've gone through and curated a whole lot of resources. So definitely recommend having a look at that if there's some things you haven't seen before that may help you and support you in what you're doing. I mean, at the end of the day, we're trying to curate things that have already been done, because there's so much good work that's been done by various people, but it's sometimes hard to find it. So that's what we're trying to do, is bring this together in one place so that people come here and they can get assistance with a whole lot of things that they might need. So that's for the tertiary students and young adults. Are there any questions on that?
There's no questions in the chat screen.
Chat,
Some
okay.
people have had to leave us.
Yes,
but,
all right. Okay.
yeah, but we'll be in touch.
Yeah, okay. And then obviously for employers, there's a whole range of things to assist them, and there's a whole of materials for neurodiverse employment, from playbooks about how to create a program, how to hire people, and so on. So there's a whole range of resources there. And then for universities, the same. There's transition to university materials, supporting autistic students, mentoring programs for students, another link to Be Your Best, the guidelines for employee expos. So a whole range of items there. And then these newer areas which have just been put up, innovation entrepreneurship. So this a whole of reading on developing the entrepreneurial mindset, which could be helpful to people who are starting the journey, the life cycle of entrepreneurs, how to find inspiration and generate ideas, getting your network going, and just highlighting some successful neurodiverse entrepreneurs that have done it, and some of the things that they say about their journey. And then we just curated some resources for employers that may want to try and make their existing programs, entrepreneurship programs, more inclusive. So we've put that together as well. And then now the new section is enabling spaces, which is for the architects and building designers. So we've got a range of practitioners listed there. Research, academic research, non-academic research, and practical applications of the materials. And then there's another section for secondary schools, and that's where we have the, again, repeating the transition to university, because we find that's quite useful for years 11 and 12. The financial literacy, the Explain the Brain competition, the link to the Neurodiversity Celebration Week, and this is Sienna Castellone in the UK, who found this initiative as a teenager. She kicked off her own website when she was 13 around this whole topic. And she had nearly 600 schools join this initiative this year. No, 750, sorry, 750 schools. And unfortunately, the timing of when she was running that week was exactly the week that everything shut down around the world. So most of the events that had been organised, including the one we organised here in Melbourne, had to be cancelled. But we were going to get Beth Radulski to speak at that, and so Beth still went ahead and recorded her talks, and the links for those are here. Another one we found with one of our partners is this. It's an app called Molehill Mountain, and it's an anxiety management app for secondary school students, and really an opportunity for parents to have that app as a way of helping their young teenagers deal with the anxiety that they might be feeling. So that's sort of a quick run through of all the different parts, and happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Andrew.
That's okay. Was there a cat in there, Madison? You had a cat.
Yes.
Okay, great.
it.
Fantastic. Okay.
I know that I can speak to the usefulness of the tool because we use it quite a lot, Andrew, in the program. So some of our guys are like obviously university students, so the uni tools and the preparing for study, and even the tips about working from home are really relevant to people who study, regardless of whether you're in lockdown or not. Like, you know, you talked about, you know, not studying in your room, and that can be a real, I know with some of our guys, that can be a real issue for them, particularly if some of our guys like to play computer games as well. So if there are activities that you really love, like gaming, or if there's a study that you do, and you do that in your room, then all of a sudden the room becomes a less calm place where you sleep and relax, and more of a workspace. So that, you know, there's some really helpful tools in there. And even with, I know with some of my people, if you are someone that does have some anxieties, or even if it's just you've got a really busy mind and sometimes you just like to get your thoughts out or to be able to process those thoughts, some of my guys really like blogging or writing. And there's lots of really good blogs here and lots of really good links to blogs, and those things just gives you an idea of where to start. Because when we say to people, you know, narrative therapy or writing is a really great place to start of getting your thoughts out. Even with some of my guys, it's not necessarily about anxiety, it's more about dealing with frustration. So, you know, you're writing it out, it really helps. But being able to come in here and just reading some blogs, it helps you. I know it sounds like something that it's unusual that people have to do, but to actually write your thoughts down, sometimes it's good to read other people's thoughts to help you get your thoughts out. And I found that this has been a really useful tool, particularly those blogs that have been written.
Yeah, well, the Stairway to STEM organisation has got quite a few autistic people in there, and they've got a number of, basically it's a whole lot of blog posts that they've done, which can give you that experience of the lived experience. So some really great things that they've pulled together. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's just sometimes it's good just to, I know with one of my people that went in there to have a read of them didn't end up writing their own because they read everyone else's. And so some of what they were feeling was reflected in that. So it was all they needed. But, you know, lots of good things to try. I think that's another one of the things that the Neurodiversity Hub gives. It gives, because it, as you said, it's not about recreating the wheel. It's putting you in touch with those things that have been created and can be useful.
Yes, so this lady here diagnosed at 25. So, you know, she's speaking from her own experience. So this is the greatness of having identified these resources and working with those organizations and then putting together this snapshot of some of the things. I mean, obviously there's more materials on those websites, but rather than just say, I'll go and look at this website, we've tried to curate some things we think would be quite useful.